Well, hello to our wonderful fans and loyal listeners. This is Chester Jones coming at you. I'm the producer of Brothers on Tennis. I'm coming to you a little under the weather today. Seems like everyone has the flu and it did not skip me today, but I wanted to come on and continue the Best of series that Bryce and Isaac has started here for season 1 of Brothers on Tennis. And my episode that I'm going to add to this list is Brothers on Tennis episode number 25, the one where Miss Nancy joined us for an exhilarating interview with her son, Bryce, or Kenneth, as you guys have come to know him through that episode, matter of fact. The reason why I'm choosing this episode is because it's for several reasons, really. I love the banter between mother and son on a sport that they absolutely love. I thought the discussion was titillating and had a lot of fire and passion in it, and it really showed the passion and love that they both have for the sport. And Miss Nancy is a character all of her own. You know, she has a lot of zest and a lot of passion just for life anyway, and that spilled over into the interview. And I think that made the interview a fun one to listen to and a fun one to produce as well. So that is my pick or my choice for the Best of series. This will be the last Best of selection in this series for season 1 of Brothers on Tennis. When we come back to you in our very next episode, we will start season 2, which will kick off the 2020 season of tennis. We are looking forward to diving in. We're looking forward to bringing you all that you have heard in season 1 and even more when we come back to you in season 2. So without further ado, please enjoy Brothers on Tennis episode 25. Miss Nancy goes in.
Happy holidays, listeners. This is your boy Bryce from Brothers on Tennis. Look, I'm here to present you a very, very special episode today. One thing that you may recognize immediately is that I'm solo today. I'm without my partner in crime. And I think he's in Denver. He's at home visiting friends and family for the holidays. So Ike, hope things are going well. Can't wait to get you back in Cali. But more to the special episode today. I am so excited to bring to you a person that I've known a very long time, that knows just as much about tennis, maybe more than I do in certain areas, and is, I think, just a real joy of a person to talk to about the sport of tennis. And that person is none other than my mother. Say hey, Mom.
Say hey, Mom. Hi, Kenneth. Kenneth, you know what, son? Let me interject this right now because your listening audience know you by Bryce and you don't use your first name. Mothers always call their sons by their first name, and yours is now known to everybody now, Kenneth, because I certainly won't be in tune to calling you Bryce. So I'm
and that
fine.
and that is fine. And so there is the history lesson on my name. But yes, as you can tell, this is going to be a very interesting and spicy interview here. So my mom is a critical figure in my life in terms of introducing me to the sport of tennis. And over the years, we have just had all kinds of conversations about tennis, whether it's about players, whether it's about coaches, the different tournaments, the different surfaces. My mom truly keeps up with it all. So I hope that you enjoyed this episode probably as much as I'm going to enjoy recording it. But before we get going with the questions, Mom, why don't you take a moment to introduce yourself to our listening audience?
Okay, my name is Nancy, and I am Kenneth Bryce's mom. I am also a retired senior citizen who spent almost 40 years in education, and I am a competitive Scrabble player and an avid tennis fan.
So, Mom, tell us a little more about your tennis background. How did you get introduced to the game?
Well, in my household, we grew up watching baseball, basketball, wrestling. It wasn't until I was with my brother in law who played tennis that he began to introduce me to tennis along with Kenneth's father. And the game just seemed very interesting. It seemed as if it was easy to play. That is not the case. When we immediately, Kenneth's father was someone, if he was interested in something, he went out and bought all the gear. So we immediately went out and bought balls, bought rackets, and went to a public court and just thought we could play tennis. Every ball we hit, each of us, it was like you were sending a ball to heaven. You didn't know when it was coming down. You didn't know, and I couldn't understand that. I didn't know anything about where your ball should make contact with the racket. Still can't do that. But we most of our time was spent looking up, waiting for the ball to fall down so we
We've
could
all
hit
been
it
there.
up again.
We have definitely all been there. So, would you say then that you are more of a spectator with the game of tennis versus a player nowadays?
Not only nowadays, those days too.
All right. Well, here's a good way that we start to learn kind of where people are in terms of the game of professional tennis. We like to kind of hear who are some of the people that they follow or maybe have even followed in the past. So, Mom, who are some of the players that you used to follow? We'll call them the old school players. They're retired now, but they were playing back when you first started watching.
Okay, Martina Navratilova. I mispronounced that, but I think everybody knows Martina. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Billie Jean King, um, Zena Garrison,
Yes.
Monica Seles, a lot of them. Jennifer Capriati. Let's see. Gabrielle Sabatini. Oh, Arancha Sanchez,
Uh
Vicario.
huh. Uh huh.
Those are
Were
some of my favorites.
okay. Were there any guys that you liked back then?
Pete Sampras. Sampras.
Uh,
Okay. Um, uh, Stefan Edberg, uh, Bjorn Borg, Mats Wielander, Arthur Ashe.
okay. So, all right. So that kind of gives us a nice cross section from the old school players. So just give me a couple of the men and women of today that you appreciate their tennis styles.
Well, I think I probably have to give you more than a couple for the women because if I said the women sisters, that's your couple right there.
The Williams sisters.
Yes, that's your couple right there. So, in fairness to the other families who have people playing tennis, I think I should name a few more. Uh, Today, I like Kvitova, Ash Barty, Azarenka. Those are some of my favorites.
Okay. What about the men?
Rafael Nadal.
I
I
knew
have to
that.
say it again. I am his number one fan, even though he doesn't know it. I did get to see him play when he was playing in Cincinnati one year, but I was so high up in the stand, he didn't know his favorite fan was there.
I'm sure he
Um,
felt it.
but Rafael Nadal, I do like Roger Federer, um, Dimitrov, um, Nishikori, and I have a lot of respect for Djokovic's game.
Okay. You and Isaac have that Dimitrov thing in common.
But we don't
So
have that Garcia thing in common.
Caroline Garcia, yeah, he's gonna love hearing that. Isaac Shade. But anyway, now before we get off of the players, give me just a couple of what we call the next gen players. These players that are just kind of coming out right now and are challenging the Williams sisters and your Rogers and your Rafas. Are there any of them that you have a particular liking to?
Well, would Coco Gauff be included in that group?
Absolutely.
Well, because she just beat Venus.
She did.
And Sophia Kennan, she's very, very tough.
She is.
Um, and so I like Katie McNally's game too because she kind of has that serve and volley thing going, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And Sabalenka and Sakari from Greece.
Yeah, Sakara is good. You like any of the new guys?
Oh yeah. I hope everybody knows who FAA is. He's from Canada.
Yeah,
I can say the
Felix.
first name is
I
Felix.
yeah, Ajer Aliassime.
Yes, that's the AA part. Um, Shapapalo, Sissy Paz, um, Medvedev. I respect his game. I cannot say he's a favorite player, but I do respect his game. He has a very, very good game and a team.
Okay, okay. Those are all some real up and comers. Cece Pass just won the year-end championships,
Uh,
and we saw how well. I think Medvedev won the most number of matches of any male player this year. So, yeah, they are definitely on the move.
okay.
So, since you've been following the game for such a long period of time, um, I'm sure you've seen many changes across the landscape of the professional tennis world. What are some of those major changes you've seen?
Well, one of the most important to me is the equal prize money at the Grand Slams for women and men.
Yeah.
That's a major accomplishment for tennis because there are no empty seats in the stadiums when you're at Grand Slam tournaments, whether they are men or whether they are women. So they're getting the number of people attending, so the purse is still big. And I just feel like it was a long time coming, but I'm very, very happy that there's equal pay for men and for women.
Well,
Um,
because didn't they used to try to justify not paying the women as much because they said they weren't as big of a draw as the men?
yep, yep. And you can't say that anymore. I mean, I don't think that was true in the beginning. But thanks to Venus Williams, she's credited with helping the ATP tournament, the major tennis tournament and that may not be right. I don't know, is that the right one to
It was
say who?
Wimbledon. It was Wimbledon was the one that still had not done equal pay where the rest of the Grand Slams had. So she particularly took that up to task to make sure that they came along as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that was very huge. So, what was the question again? Now, what were some of the major?
Well, it was just, didn't they try to justify that women didn't bring in as many people to the tournaments as the men did?
Yeah, no,
And
I've got that, but I thought you had another part to your question.
oh no, I hadn't, and I was just getting ready to say that it's hard to imagine that there's a bigger draw than Serena Williams. I mean, of course, Rafa and Roger are up there as well, but Serena Williams has to be one of the biggest draws in professional tennis, men or women.
That's right. And
Yeah.
men and women both enjoy watching Serena.
Right, exactly. So now I'm sure there are some things in the game that you feel haven't changed that still need to change. Or is there anything there? Anything you want to specifically mention or bring up?
Well, I've been thinking about this, and one of the things that and this kind of really became central to me once the switching sports now. Once the New Orleans Saints um, weren't given credit for a play last year, which would have advanced them closer to the Super Bowl, even though the cameras showed that they should have been awarded, I don't know whether it was more yardage or points or what have you. And once again, the decision was based on the referees. One of the things that I think definitely should be changed in tennis, I think that when there are challenge calls, the result should always come from Hawkeye. And that is, it should not be interpretations, or those calls should not be made, whether they for or against the player, based on human beings. As far as I know it, they don't give referees an eye test every time there's a tennis match. They don't see whether they have a maybe not be feeling 100%, where maybe they're not totally focused. But if they used Hawkeye, which is the computer um, way of indicating whether a ball is in or out, I think that makes a big difference, because many players have lost some matches after the fact when they say, "Oh, that ball was in. Oh, that ball was out." That's not
And
fair.
and
That's
you know
not.
what? I think what you're even alluding to is what the current controversy is most of the tournaments on grass and hard court and indoor do use Hawkeye now, but there has been resistance to use it on the clay courts because the argument has been that the ball leaves a mark, and so you can go check that mark on a clay court. But I think they've had some instances where shot spots showed that the ball did skid off the line and then made a mark outside of the regulation of play, which would have made that ball good. Versus if you just look at the mark afterwards, you would just think that shot was out.
But also in conjunction with what you're saying, sometimes they're not looking at the right mark.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
And I really think this is, easily solvable. And that means just use the technology. Use the technology. You have Hawkeye. Think about it. When a player challenges a call, what do they go to? They go to Hawkeye. Does anybody question Hawkeye? No. So why not just let them use Hawkeye in the beginning? Then, that would stop from slowing down the game, since it's going to be the final authority anyway.
Right. That's one of the issues I think we've had over the years with the game of tennis. It's been so steeped in traditionalism that they're very slow to change. And although there have been a lot of changes in the game of tennis, I think they typically are very slow to make them across the board. But other than that, are there other things that you would like to see changed in the game?
Um, I'm not thinking of any right now. I'm sure something might come to. That was one of the big things. Definitely that the electronic scoring, should be used. Well, there's one more thing too. I think that, and this is a biggie. Um, I think that they should change the end of the year tournament to different surfaces. When you talk about the men's end of the year tournament, it's always an indoor tournament. Now, that provides
And same thing for the
a,
women, by the way.
okay, that provides an advantage to certain types of players. And see, the thing is, they have that advantage every year. I think that they should rotate the surfaces. One year, the end of the year tournament should be on clay, another year on hard court, another year on grass, and you could still have one year indoor. But it's just not fair for all of the end of the year tournaments to be indoor. I mean, certain people are automatically favored based on their game.
Right. And I know we've heard Rafa Nadal speak out against this, feeling that this wasn't fair um, from his perspective as well.
Well, yeah, because if you look at any of the surfaces, you could identify certain players who perform best on, let's just say, clay. Uh, Roger performs best on grass. I mean, when you're at the top of the game, all of them perform well on all of the surfaces, else they wouldn't be at the top of the game. However, it just shouldn't be that, okay, every end of the year tournament is going to be indoor. That is not fair. There should be equity in that, and I don't see why that's a hard thing to accomplish.
Right, and it may be something that they change one day. Like I was saying, though, unfortunately, they're very slow to make changes uh, like this. So, well, look, let's do something kind of fun here. So, you are very opinionated on various topics in the game of tennis. So, what I want to do is I want to have a hot topic section here. We'll go rapid fire. I'll give you a topic, and then I will just allow you to take the floor, and you can give us your thoughts on that particular subject. So,
What if I have some topics I have some hot topic information on?
well, let's start with yours then.
Well, no, let's start with yours because you might ask something. So let's start with yours.
Okay, then. Well, the first one, of course, is a very hot topic in tennis, and that is will or will not Serena tie and or break Margaret Court's Grand Slam singles title record? She's currently one behind Margaret Court.
I think as soon as she fires her coach, she has a better chance of doing that. Patrick is not doing the job. It is his job to have her mentally prepared when she gets to the final. Serena has been in four finals since the birth of her daughter. There is no way, given her talent, that she should not be mentally prepared to win a final. She did it when Serena would get to the finals before, it was almost a given that she was going to win. I think Patrick Matagalu, and I hope I'm pronouncing the name close enough, um, he has divided interests now. He is part of Coco Goff's, coaching staff, or at least she goes to his academy. Sissy Paz is one of his, and they are both great players, and I like them both. But Serena needs someone whose full attention is on her. And I think that if he hasn't done the job to have her mentally prepared, remember, I don't know if you remember, it was at the U.S. Open. She was in the first round, and he said, normally Serena doesn't like to know who she's playing. But in this case, I told her she was playing Sharapova. And and anybody's been following tennis, you have to know Serena and Sharapova's kind of history. Whereas they're both champions, Serena is a super champion, and whereas they're both fierce competitors, have great strengths in the game, um, Sharapova is not in the same category as Serena. So what I'm saying is that he knew that there was a psychological effect of letting Serena know that in the first round of the U.S. Open she would be meeting Sharapova. Now, I don't say that he has to be a sports psychologist, but there is just no way, given her talent, that she doesn't even bring her best game. She brings one of her poorest game to the Grand Slam finals, and that's after having reached um, that of those finals after having given birth. So I
And
really think that she needs a new coach. And if I may continue on that a little bit, you see, Patrick, he was cheating when she was playing Osaka in what final, what Grand Slam was that, Ken?
that was the U.S. Open final in
Okay.
2018.
Now all of the time, Arsene and Richard coached their daughters, Venus and Serena. Not only did they not cheat, They never came on the court to give them any kind of instructions because they wanted them to figure it out themselves.
Right.
Now he's up there looking like he's moving a train up and down, like nobody knows what that is. But and so when she was accused of cheating, she said, "No, we don't do that. We don't do that." Well, not only did was he caught on camera, he had to admit it. He had to admit it. So first of all, that's the thing that really got her upset in that finals that she had against Saka because she really felt that she was being accused as a cheater. It wasn't Serena, it was her coach. And therefore, I don't know. I just think she needs a new coach. I really thought she should have fired him after that. I mean, and then the other thing is that, he commentates sometimes for ESPN. And I just knew ESPN wasn't going to have him doing that anymore. But yes, they did. I mean, they had him still coming, giving comments and commentating a little bit. And, I have my issues with ESPN too, but we'll talk about that later.
Well, and
Well, well, well,
ESPN.
well, well, just a minute, excuse me. Let me talk about it now. Let me talk about it now because I might forget. I just think there should be, with all of the diversity in women's tennis and men's tennis, I think there should be more diversity in the announcers booth. And I'll just leave it at that.
So what I was trying to get in before is that with Patrick, probably one of the things that ESPN is trying to lock themselves into is that up until now, he has been an entry point into Serena and or the Williams sisters camp. They probably also see him as an entry point into the future as well because of his association with Coco Golf and with CC Pass, who they probably see as future champions on the tour. So that is probably a bit of an incentive for them to keep him a little bit still in the fold for the network. I could
Yeah,
definitely see
but
them doing it.
I'm sorry, son. I'm sorry, son. Uh, they can always have him on to interview him as a guest. But to have him commentating where he is getting paid, money for that as well as coaching Serena, I just don't think I don't think they should have kept him, especially when he admitted. Do you remember he admitted he was cheating?
I do.
He admitted it because the cameras caught him. He said, "Yeah, yeah." He said, "Yeah, I was cheating. I was cheating. Everybody cheat." Well, I
And,
wouldn't want a coach doing what everybody does.
and he even tried to rat out Sasha. And he said Sasha was doing the same thing
Sasha
during the
was,
finals.
and that was not the case. That was not the case. That was not the case because I'm sorry, we may be staying on this a little too long, but I think he's the reason that Serena fired Sasha. I think he knew that Serena and Sasha had a great relationship. He wasn't officially her coach, but he was a hitting partner, and he'd been a part of that family for a very, very long time. And he still is. They are still very close. In fact, when Serena had her daughter, they said Sasha was at the hospital every day, and I don't think they lived that far from each other. So I think that Patrick was maybe a little jealous of the friendship that Sasha and Serena had, and he's the one. I'm sure Serena just wouldn't have fired him because he was her hitting partner. He wasn't a coach, but again, Serena, excuse me, Serena had listened to him a lot. So I know I'm going on a little too much about this, but Patrick, no, I think Serena should fire him. Nobody else may have thought about it, may not have said it, but this is Brothers on Tennis, so we can say what we want to say, right?
There you go. So, since you're talking about Patrick as a commentator, tell us your thoughts on some other commentators. Who are some of your favorites? Who are some of your not so favorites?
Well, I think Chris McHenry is just a true professional.
Yeah.
I just think she is a class above. She is just a class above. They had to, well, I shouldn't say this, but Chris Fowler used to have that position, but um, I'm glad they have her because She's just a pleasant person. She's very knowledgeable. She doesn't do anything to try to agitate or put the other commentators on spot. And she's great. The way I value commentators is how knowledgeable they are and whether the advice that they give or what they even see in players and in the game, makes good tennis sense. And there are just some who are very, very good at that. Um, Renee Stubbs is very good at that. Um, Lindsay Davenport, she didn't start off being great. I remember when Lindsay first started, it was almost like somebody had to tap her on the shoulder and say, "Okay, it's time for you to speak." But she she is better now. But you know who I really, really like? You do know this, son. You know this
Right.
already. But
Right.
I'll tell your audience. Shonda Rubin.
Yeah.
Shonda is great.
She's our
She is
favorite
just
too.
she is exceptional. And did I mention Renee Stubbs?
You did.
Okay, yeah. So those would be some of my favorites. Now I know to many people they think, well, you didn't name Chris Everett, and you didn't name Chris Everett was a great, great tennis player. Um, she was never my favorite, but I remember her game because I like a more aggressive game. I like the serve and volley game for the women. I like Martina's style better. But Chris was very, very good. I mean, it's no doubt about that. But I think when you get into broadcasting, you have to know that there's a big difference between being a great tennis player and then being a great commentator. Um, um, that is not Chris Everett's calling, being a commentator, and she's not the only one, but she has such a prominent, role, um, with ESPN. So, and I know it's because of her success in tennis, but I think commentators should be hired for what they do based on their skill level there. And that's just my opinion. But
Right.
as you
No.
said, you've already told your audience, I have opinions about everything.
Right. And you are proving that right. So let's jump to one that I know you have a definite opinion on. There's a lot of talk right now about this whole GOAT race on the men's side between Roger Federer, Nadal is just one behind him, and total Grand Slam singles titles. And then Djokovic is, I think, three behind Nadal. So how do you think all of this is going to shake out?
Well, first of all, I don't think the greatest of all time should be based on the number of Grand Slams. Uh,
Singles titles. Okay.
that's right. Should not be based on the number of Grand Slam singles titles. Um, that is too one dimensional. Not when you're going to use the word greatest of all times. Um, I think that you should look at all of the things they do in tennis. Now, for example, Chris Everett was very, very good playing baseliner tennis. Very good. Okay. Um, but that was her game. That was just basically, her game, and that's great. But there were other players who played very great on all surfaces and also had more variety in their game. Steffi Graf, she was a strong baseliner, but she was a very aggressive player. Monica Seles, sadly, her career was cut short. I'm sure your audience know about this due to a stabbing by, I think, a German when she was playing Stephanie Graf in Germany. But when you
Well,
look,
she wasn't playing Steffi, but that fan wanted Steffi to become number one
you're
again.
right, you're right, you're right.
Yeah.
Thanks for the correction. You're right, you're right. But when you look at Martina Navratilova, I don't know why I'm having a hard time pronouncing her name. Probably because I'm new doing this. Um, you look at everything that she's accomplished. In singles, in women's doubles, in mixed doubles. I mean, serve, volley, a counter punch, speed, you name it. She to me was an all-around player, and yet Steffi has more grand slams, but
And singles only.
oh yeah, that's right. Because if you were to look at the full body of work, and that's what I think they should look at, the full body of work. You know, what did this person accomplish? And sometimes certain people are not able to even put themselves in a position to do everything. Because you remember Martina Navratilova is from Czechoslovakia. So, you know, she grew up playing tennis there, but she ended up, you know, defecting to the United States, which was our blessing, truly our blessing. So I just really think that's a bone for me. I don't think I mean, Steffi was great, but I could not say that I would say Steffi would be the greatest of all time. I think Martina's record, her body of work, is just much more impressive. Even though Steffi's body of work is very impressive, I
Right.
think she won what the Grand Slams four
Well,
times in a row.
no. Well, she won the Golden Slam, which meant in a calendar year she won all four Grand Slam singles titles plus the Olympics gold medal.
Yes, yes,
And I think the other point that you were referring to is that she won each one of the individual Grand Slam singles titles at least four times each.
yes. But she didn't win any mixed doubles. She didn't
Right.
win. Or did she?
I don't think not mixed doubles. And I can't remember what the exact number is, and the listeners will remember. I feel the same way about Martina Navratilova. Martina has the most number of titles when you add all events, singles, doubles, mixed doubles, tour titles, Grand Slam titles. She is number one, and it was not even close to who was number two to her. So I agree with you. I do think that a lot of accomplishments are not taken into consideration when they say the greatest of all time, because just looking at singles Grand Slam titles is very one dimensional.
Well, I've even heard Martina comment on that. And it was she who said they should look at the total body of work. And that was so well said. And that is the truth if you're going to talk about the greatest of all time. So hopefully, if Serena, and I'm really hoping that she's going to do it. I believe she's going to do it. I believe she is going to not only tie Margaret Court, I think she's going to exceed Margaret Court. And then there won't be any question about who is the greatest of all time.
Right. So back to kind of the men. What do you think about this race between Federer, Rafa, and Djokovic?
Well, you know, Rafa is my favorite.
I do.
I don't dislike Federer at all. I mean, I like him, you know, I do respect him. He's done a lot for tennis. Um, I definitely respect Djokovic's game. I remember when Djokovic first came on the circuit, he was so ill at ease and he was always trying to make people laugh. He was very good at just doing funny things, you know, on the court. And sadly, you know, and I think it's Curios who says that Djokovic is just trying to get people to love him. You know, I mean, I digress right now. I digress
The boob
because
toss.
you know, I have to digress right here because you know, Curios, who is from Australia, if he had the what is the word I want to use? If he had the focus,
Discipline.
that's the word. That's exactly the word. If he had the discipline, there is nothing he couldn't do on the court. He is exceptional. And that's even without trying. You know, I think most of the time he doesn't even have a coach. And I cannot
Right.
see him out there practicing hours a day. He is just so talented. But he is an immature player. And I hate to say that because there may be something else going on that he is not able to control. I mean, I don't mean to try to diagnose anybody. I mean, I'm just a tennis fan, you know. But I think he has frustrated every coach that has worked with him. It doesn't seem to bother him whether he wins or he loses. He might regret that later on in his life, but everybody knows that had he brought his A game all the time, he would really be in the record books. But I could say the same thing for Monfils. Now, Monfils to me just enjoys playing and he enjoys entertaining the crowd.
Right.
Um, he plays a defensive game all the way through. When he has the ability to be as aggressive as anybody out there, he has the speed. He can do vertical jumps. Um, he can place the ball anywhere. One of the things that is lacking, it seems to be his fitness because he seems to tire out sometimes. And the majority of his career, I think, had Monfils played to the level of ability that he has, he would have been. I'm not sure we'd even be talking about Roger or well, I still kind of think we'd be talking about Nadal. I mean, I just have to say,
Oh, nah.
I just
Look at
have to
petty, petty, petty.
you know what I think Nadal has that a lot of players do not have, and it was
Underwear
his.
that doesn't fit.
I say what?
Underwear that doesn't fit.
Oh, Kenneth, no, 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 no. I can't go there because I'm not gonna go there. What I think he has, um, you know how Nadal pays attention to everything, even where his water bottles are placed.
OCD.
Well, okay, but in this case, if that's what he has, it's good. It's good for tennis because what is it? Paul Anacomb, who was once Federer's coach, he said in a broadcast not too many weeks ago. I think it was Jim Courier who asked him. Maybe it wasn't Jim, but somebody asked him if you had to pick one tennis player who could get you through or to help you, whatever, who would you pick? And immediately he said Rafa Nadal, even though he had coached Federer and he knows Federer was a good player. He said because there's no quit in him, and he doesn't become a prisoner of the past. Like, oh, I missed that shot. It's missed. He's completely focused on the next shot. And for him, the match isn't over until the match is over. There's just no quit in him. Some players see that they are not winning, and then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, where then they just kind of give up. Nadal would would literally almost die on the court. And what I like about him, I remember when he first came out as a player. I mean, I just like that the way he was dressed. He kind of had those kind of, I don't know what you call those pants that come down to the knee.
The capri shorts.
Okay, they weren't short though, kind of. They came down to the knee. They weren't
Well,
short.
yeah. Well, that's why they call capri.
Okay, okay, okay. You're
Uh,
right about that. You're right about that. And then he had the bandana, you know, and it was like this was Geronimo, coming, and then he was just laser focused. And I know I'm going a little bit off topic, but I think, even I mean, I'm not gonna try to diagnose a player. I don't care what it is, because whatever it is, I don't even want him to get healed. I want him to keep it. Okay, just keep it. But I also think the rigidity of his coach, Uncle Tony. Uncle Tony was just very, very rigid with Nadal, and even afterwards, he didn't want him to feel any kind of favor or privileged or anything. So I did buy his book, one for me and one for you. I read my copy. I don't think
it,
you read your copy.
it's on the list. I'm gonna get to it.
Yeah, you've had about 4 years.
So, are you saying that you think Nadal is gonna probably end up on top of that group of three?
I think he has as good a chance as anybody else, if not better, because, like I said, he is definitely is. I don't know. He has a mentality, a strong mentality that he just. You saw the U.S. Open. No one thought Nadal was going to win. Medvedev Yeah, Nadal won 2 sets, Medvedev won 2 sets, but Medvedev was just you didn't see that happening. But
Right.
there's just no quit in him, and for him to be this close to Roger and to have won Grand Slam not only in singles but also in doubles and also in the Olympics. Did I get
Yeah,
that right?
that's right. He and Mark Lopez, I believe, was his partner.
That's right. That's right. So and yeah, he has a very good chance. In fact, I kind of think he might pull it out. Agassi has said for a long time that Nadal is the GOAT. And he and Steffi said, let's table this. Let's wait till their careers are over. But Agassi has said that several times.
Okay. So speaking of Federer, one of the newest events that we have on the professional circuit for the men is the Laver Cup. And I know that you have watched it the last 3 years, or its first 3 years that it's been on. What have been your thoughts?
I love the Labor Cup. I just love it. I mean, I love it. Now, that's Federer's brainchild, so he goes all the way to the head of the class for that because I think that is the best 3-day tournament. I mean, Kenneth, there I go. Mother called him Kenneth.
That's
Um,
fine.
that is such a suspenseful, tournament. It's only 3 days, and in each of the three years, the final, the team that won did not do so until the final match. And it was
Right.
never the player that you thought who would be playing that final game. Here you have, and I'm sure your tennis fans know about the Labor Cup, but here you have Europe going against the entire world. And um, uh, Nadal and Federer, they're on the same team. They're no longer competitors. Even Djokovic, has played on the Labor Cup team 1 year, and it caught fire right away. When you talk to people about the Labor Cup, people just love it. I mean, I like all the tennis, but I have to say right now, the Labor Cup is my favorite. I cannot wait until September comes again.
Right, me too. And as a reminder to our listeners, Brothers on Tennis, we plan to be there. It is in Boston this year, so keep tuned for that.
Is there a ticket for mother, mom?
I'll let you know when Ticketmaster has them on sale.
Hey listeners, tell my son to make sure I'm at the Labor Cup. Please tell my son to make sure I'm at the Labor Cup.
I'm gonna create a GoFundMe page
Oh,
to pay for my mom's expenses to go to the Labor Cup. So hey, mom,
works for
I know
me.
you had mentioned that there may be a couple of hot topics that you had. Do you? Is there anything you wanted to bring up?
Well, I think we kind of hit on some of that, and the one was um, the Hawkeye.
Okay.
Having that to be the official um, coach, if you will, even though it's electronic, as to whether a point is good or not. The only other thing that I mean, not the only other thing, but I'm just so excited about the future of tennis. Even when you think that it can't get any better, and I'm not even talking about a tournament. I'm just talking about players. I just love me some Ash Barty. Ash Barty from Australia. I mean, there's no pretense in her. I mean, she goes out there and play like she's going to a day job or whatever and just gets the job done. Her team is very, very supportive, and they seem like a happy family. Uh, who would have thought? That's what I said. Tennis is just it's so exciting. Who would have thought if you had given tennis players and said, name 3 people who would end the year as number one on the women's side and they would have won their first Grand Slam.
And let's add to that. So not only did she end the year number one in singles, she ended the year number one in doubles as well. And let's not forget that the Grand Slam that she won first was the one she was most unlikely to win, the French
Exactly.
Open on clay. It seems like her game is suited to faster surfaces like grass and hard court and indoor. I don't think anybody, including Ash Barty herself, thought that she was going to win the French Open in 2019.
You can tell she's a very humble person. Um, you can tell that there's pretty much no pretense about her. Even when she's talking to her coach, a lot of players, when they're talking to their coach, it's like the players aren't even paying any attention. She is nodding her head or showing that she's agreeing or she's asking questions. Um, there's nothing pretentious about her. And I just wish her continued success. The other thing I did want to bring up, uh, um, what's her name from Japan, Osaka.
Oh, Osaka, yes.
Well, Kenneth, my son. I fell out with her when she first came on. I thought, oh, this girl is good, and then she got Sasha to be her coach. And I'm thinking, hey, that's good. Sasha's been around Serena, so he can really help her. And in his maiden year as a coach, his first year as a coach, that was the year that they created this award that to name a coach of the year, and he won that. The first year that award was given, he won coach of the year. Not Serena's coach. Not Serena's coach, not Patrick. Sasha won it. And
Shade.
he got her, she won 2 Grand Slams. New kid on the block, 2 Grand Slams. Then all of a sudden you hear he's no longer gonna be her coach. She's not happy. She's not happy. And so she fires him. She let him go. So she hired one of the I guess the assistant coaches, the guy she hired
Yeah.
was on her team, and I have nothing against him. I'm sure who would refuse being promoted, but she was with him the rest of the year and she didn't win anything. So I'm happy that she's happy because she wasn't happy when she won 2 Grand Slams. She let
And
Sasha go, but when
and
she
and mom, she didn't even keep him for the rest of the year because remember she let and I can't remember if it was Jameer Jackson or if it's the other one. I forget the names, but no, because right now she technically I think is being coached by her father.
Well, she was. I think the father did step in. But what I'm saying is, what's to be unhappy about when you're a new girl on the block? You're very young and you just coming out and you win back to back Grand Slam. And 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 you're not happy. I mean, come on. Uh, so I respect her game. She has a very good game. What softened me a little bit with her, and you kind of helped me see this because I was ready just to be done with her forever. But the way she treated Coco Gauff when Coco Gauff lost to her, and she knew how that felt. I mean, I think everybody was just so touched by that moment.
Right.
So it
That
was
was
like,
yeah.
well, okay, okay, all right, all right. You're not on the hot seat, but let's just leave it at that. Okay, she's not. So that was a beautiful moment. That
it
showed
it
the
was.
character.
That was a
That-
beautiful moment in all sports to
right,
see.
right, right, right. Um, what was the question? Did you ask me something else?
No, no, I was just leaving it open for you for anything you wanted to say before we closed up this episode.
Is it time to go already? Oh, I guess
It's about that time.
that's the way it is when I'm doing all the talking. But 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 you know that well. Let me see. I'm excited about you know um what's coming up the new year, I'm hoping that Serena, I've seen pictures of Serena. She's looking fitter and fitter. And I'm hoping that she's going to bring it for the Australian Open. But I think Serena is not going to quit. Serena is the type of person, once she has a goal, you know, um, she's going to pretty much stick to it to the best of her ability. I don't think she's considered firing Patrick. So, Serena, if you're listening, one of the things you might consider is that Sasha is no longer with who was he coaching, Kenneth?
Well, he's no longer with Kiki Mitlanovic, but he has already signed up to work with Yekstremska for next year. So
he'll drop it like a hot cake if Serena wants him.
Well, just like he dropped Kiki. Shade. That was funny.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Well, anyway, on that note, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and wrap up this episode. Mom, I really want to thank you for taking the time to come on and to share some of your knowledge with our listeners. It was spicy and it was entertaining.
Well, before we go, son, I had this wonderful opportunity of working with your producer, and I know he's done other things before, but I have never worked with him before. And for those listening, you probably see I haven't worked with many people before, and some people may never want me to be a part of them. But the producer was just so professional and gave me some tips. So I hope I did okay, and I just wanted to acknowledge that.
And the producer is her nephew, so you got all that family love going on right there. So let me just open that up real quick. But anyway, as you know, we're in the off season on the pro tennis circuit right now. And so what we're going to do is we're going to give you 3 very special episodes coming up for the next several weeks. My producer, Chet, who is my cousin and my mother's nephew, Isaac, and myself, we're all selecting our favorite episodes from the year, and we're going to reshare them with you. So if you hadn't listened to them, take a listen, and I'm sure we'll each be letting you know why we picked that episode as our favorite episode.
And to the viewing public, I'm sure I'll be one of those favorites. This is Kenneth's mom signing off.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, Mom. And this is your boy Bryce, and on behalf of Brothers on Tennis and our good friend Isaac, we will talk to you later. Take care.